You've probably seen an ad or even got an email about $19 flights, but are they worth the stress? If you scroll social media very much or watch the news, you're probably gonna see some things about budget airlines that you really don't like. I mean, all airlines, whether budget or very expensive, get some bad raps from time to time, but budget airlines get some of the worst. So let's talk through some of the better ones I personally anymore steer clear of, and also some tips and tricks for saving money. Because if you're looking at a budget airline, it's not because you're wanting to spend a ton of money, it's because you're trying to save money. So let's talk about how we can do that, corners you can cut, things that are add-ons that you may or may not need to pay for. And as someone who flies budget airlines exclusively, I've got some tips. Before we jump into the good stuff, I did though want to introduce myself for those of you that may be new. Hi, my name is Ashley, and here on my channel, Pixie Dusted Mom, I am all the time sharing tips, tricks, and hacks for taking toddlers and little kids to Disney World, family travel tips, Disney World planning tips, as well as vlogs from our adventures along the way. So if that is content that you're interested in, you've got a family vacation coming up, I would highly recommend clicking the red subscribe button. Let's be virtual internet besties. Turn that button from red to gray. And now, with no further ado, let's jump into the video. In this video, we're gonna talk about 3 of the kind of heavy hitting budget airlines. We're gonna talk Southwest, Spirit, as well as Frontier. So starting out with Southwest. Now they are quite possibly my favorite of the budget airlines, just because I feel like they're also the easiest. So yeah, it can be argued that they really aren't budget friendly anymore, especially post 2020. Things have kind of shifted a lot with Southwest. So you can take this with a grain of salt. If you can find a good deal, it can be worth it. And depending on how much extra stuff you're purchasing with other airlines, you could come out to very similar, if not the same cost up front as the whole ticket cost with Southwest. So you may look at a Spirit flight and think, oh, well, this is a $40 flight, but then you've got to add your bag, which is another, say, $50 round trip. And so once you start adding that in there, you may get to the point where, okay, it's the same or very similar to Southwest. So Southwest is kind of best in my opinion, just because, like I said, it is kind of the easiest. Once you buy that, you're not having to pay for extra seats. You're not having to pay for bags. If your packing situation changes with a lot of the other airlines like Spirit and Frontier, you kind of have to know all of that information and have made that decision up front to get the cheapest price on bags. So if you're wanting to save the most money on buying those budget airlines and flying with that company, you're going to want to know all of that up front and kind of have that decision made. So for me, in most cases, I end up using like a carry-on, and so you pay for the carry-on to your destination, the carry-on back, or if you do a checked bag. But with Southwest, you have your carry-on, which is included, and then you also get 2 checked bags also included. So if you're like, you know what, I'm gonna take an empty suitcase just for souvenirs, or you're gonna go to an outlet mall or whatever, wherever your destination is, and you're like, I want to bring some stuff back, then you actually have the opportunity to do that. You can kind of make that last minute decision of, I'm gonna switch this up. I don't want to do carry on only. I want to do a checked bag. I want to do 2 checked bags, whatever. You can kind of have a little bit more flexibility, so you are kind of paying for that as well in that kind of added cost of Southwest. For me, I do love that they have the family boarding, so that gets you on early. If you are traveling like our family with a stroller and you're gate checking it, then you do get to get on the plane a little bit earlier because you do need that gate assistance. So between the boarding group A and boarding group B, they will have what's called family boarding. So then you can go on at that time. And then to be eligible for family boarding, your child just has to be age 6 or under to be able to utilize the family boarding time. And that is for them as well as 2 adults. So both parents are able to go on in addition to the child. And so you can get on early. Now, if you're traveling with grandparents, they would have to board in their normal group. So if you've got extended family, your auntie and uncle are coming along too, whatever the case is for your family, they would have to board in the regular group. But mom and dad can take the child on early. You know for a fact you're going to be able to sit with your family, so you don't have to worry about having to split up or anything like that. So that can be a really nice nice little added bonus there if you are traveling with kiddos, is they do have a very nice family boarding section. So all in all, I think Southwest is personally the best. I've had no issues with them. They're really good about rebooking things. So, and everybody's situation may vary. So some of you may be like down in the comment section like, oh my God, Southwest is the worst. So I totally get that. Everyone's experience is different. Thankfully, with all the flying of Southwest that we have done, we've always been really good, and you can find some really good deals. Now, I would always check Southwest for sales because they're consistently having a sale on their flights. You do have to watch with booking them though. Sometimes waiting until closer to time doesn't work so well with Southwest. With other airlines, waiting until a couple months out isn't bad, but with Southwest, waiting until a couple months out can mean you're going to pay significantly more for your flight. So one thing that I like to do is if it's within a price range that I like, I will go ahead and book it. And then if you are using flight points with a Southwest credit card, if the flight drops, you can get a refund on the difference on those points. So say it was a 6,000 point flight, now it's a 5,000 point flight, they will refund those to you. Or if you've paid cash for a flight, I literally had this happen just the other day. I think it was $140 per person on our trip to Orlando from Nashville, and the flight dropped from $140 down to $110. And so I was able to go on, modify my flight. So I was able to just step through that process of modifying the flight, and I got this same exact flight, same exact time, but I got $30 back per person in the form of a Southwest credit. So I am able to hold on to that and use it on a future flight, which is really nice. I know we're gonna be flying again, so that really comes in handy. You don't get a full money back, so that is a little tough, especially if you don't fly as much. But if you're somebody who frequently flies and you're gonna be taking multiple trips within a year, I think it's always great to do that. I love playing the Southwest lottery personally. Now let's talk about Frontier. So Frontier is the worst budget airline in my personal opinion. I have flown them a few times, and I'm not gonna say I'm never gonna fly them again because it may come a time where I have to. But one thing I will say is if you are worried about making sure to get seats together as a family or anything like that, I have struggled with that with Frontier. We'll get to Spirit in a few minutes, we'll talk about that, but Frontier, they were very quick. If you do not purchase seats with your tickets, they will separate you. Now, I've never had them to separate me from my children, so that's nice. And I believe under 12, they have to seat you together. So obviously, like for me, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. They cannot, and I think it's literally legally, they cannot be seated separately from me because of their age. Like they have to be seated with their mother. But as a family of 4 traveling together, so my husband and myself and my 2 kids, they would seat us separately. So one person with a child and the other adult with another child. So you could be on like 2 opposite ends of the flight. They don't seem to group you together. So if you are wanting to be one big happy family, same row or close or something, that may or may not happen. So if you want to secure that, you do need to factor in purchasing seats. So that is one thing I would highly suggest is if you're flying Frontier, purchase those seats together because they're not going to automatically, unless you're flying solo with your children, they are not going to automatically seat you together. So just something to kind of keep in mind. I flew Frontier once with my 4-year-old, and it ended up I was on an in-seat on this aisle and she was on an in-seat on this aisle. Thankfully, we had some really sweet people around us, and it was another mom traveling with her son who was like 9 or 10, and so she's like, he won't mind sitting by himself and sitting by you, so I'm just gonna move over into your seat. We'll put him on the end and then you 2 can sit here together. So sweet. I was like, moms rock, like we're helping each other out here. So I was like, I could have hugged the lady, but it was so sweet. And so it can kind of work out that way, but you are very dependent upon somebody being willing to maybe switch seats with you or something like that. So if that person's like, no, I paid for this window seat, I want this window seat, or no, I paid for this aisle seat, I ain't moving, then you're kind of stuck. So that's just something to keep in mind. I would highly recommend factoring in your seats with Frontier. Another thing is too, when you're pricing this out, is don't forget your bags. Really think that through. How much are you packing? How much are you taking? And if you can at all, purchase them when you purchase your flight, because it's going to get incrementally more expensive versus buying them at booking time, versus going on and adding them later, versus at the counter, and then versus actually getting on the plane. If they're like, oh, you only paid for 0 bags and you have 2 bags, or you have 1 bag, they're gonna charge you an even higher rate to get that bag on the plane, to gate check it, whatever. So to save yourself some money and frustration, highly recommend knowing, kind of having an idea of how you're gonna pack, or being okay with, okay, if what I am packing and what I am taking isn't going to fit in this suitcase, I'm gonna have to start ditching things or be okay with spending more money. So just kind of having that honest heart-to-heart with yourself of how much am I packing, how much am I taking, what is this legitimately gonna look like, and kind of planning accordingly. So moral of the story, if you're flying Frontier, just go ahead and buy the seats if you don't want to risk getting separated. And if you want like a specific seating arrangement, just buy the seats. If it's like $20 or so a person price difference between like Frontier and Southwest, I'm just gonna go ahead and pay the extra 20 bucks and just have convenience and go with Southwest personally. So while yes, those emails for Frontier $19 flights are very, very tempting, just buyer beware on that. They also have some really, really picky gate agents. So it's like your bag fee comes out of their paycheck if you are the slightest inch over, or if your handles stick out. Like you've probably seen the stuff on the internet. They don't get the best rap. So I would just not fly Frontier if you can at all get like away from it. Now let's talk about my, and I know this sounds a little crazy to say, but my favorite of the budget airlines, and that's Spirit. We fly them probably more than anybody lately, just because coming from Nashville, we get some really good pricing here. Now, sometimes that is dependent upon when you book and the timing that is available. Sometimes it may not be the most ideal time of day. You may have to kind of sacrifice the timing of your day for saving a little bit of money. But if you are trying to watch your P's and Q's and save a little bit of money, I would definitely check into Spirit. Now, just know that with them, you are going to need to, again, factor in your bags. Now, seats we'll get into in a minute, but as far as bags, they're gonna be your cheapest to purchase them at the time you book your flight. So go ahead, it's just like Frontier. Think that through, know how you're going to pack, know how your family consistently packs. Like if you're always a checked bag kind of family, know that, but do take into account that theirs, like for us coming from Southwest to Spirit, was a little bit of an adjustment with a checked bag, because with Southwest, we had a 50-pound weight limit. With Spirit, you have a 40-pound weight limit. So it is a little different. Something to think of is you may need to, instead of using your giant 29-inch suitcase, for me, I had to size down to my 25-inch suitcase. And even then we were pushing it. It was close and I was like sweating a little bit, like, okay, is this gonna be within the weight limit? Even like measuring at home, I'm like, is my scale accurate? I think my scale's accurate, but their scale may be different. I don't know. That's just one thing you do have to pay for bags in addition to, and sometimes they are really expensive. Like they can be $50 each way. And so there's times that taking a carry-on was more than my flight. Like just the bag one way was more than my flight. Like I've seen flights where I could fly down to Disney World in Orlando, down and back for less than $50. For me to take a checked bag would have been $52 just to Orlando, and then another $50 or $52 back to Nashville. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. The extras are where it adds up. The good deals on the flights, it's like, oh, that's great. And if you can pack carry-on only or something like that, that can be nice. But those bags are where they get you. Now, when it comes to Spirit, I very rarely purchase seats anymore. So I know some of you may be like, you what now? Like thinking I've lost my mind, but hear me out. So with Spirit, every single time I fly with my girls by myself, I fly with my husband, or I fly even the 4 of us as a family going somewhere, they always seat us together, which is amazing. I am so grateful for that. Usually they will have 3 of us on a row and then 1 on another row. One way I do ensure getting seats together is I try to check in as early as possible. So I try to make sure I check in like right as I can or within an hour or so. If you're flying during a busier season, say a holiday, I would have my alarm set for the moment you can check in. That way you can go ahead and get that done. The sooner you check in, the further toward the back of the plane you will be. So here's where you can kind of play the lottery on your seats together. But if I'm going during a slow season, or I know the flight isn't sold out, or whatever, I will wait a few hours after check-in time to let some people check in and let some of those seats fill from the back of the plane. And then there's times we'll get around row 15, 18, something like that. So we're not like 27 in the very back of the plane. So that is one thing you can do. Now your mileage may vary. And there could be okay, it books out of seats and you can't get anything. So that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind, is that you could luck out and have to deal with talking to a gate agent and saying, hey, my family's separated, can you put us together? But that's just one thing that I do. It's kind of a little hack to get us a little closer to the front of the plane. It's consistently worked for me, but again, your mileage may vary. Another option when purchasing flights through Spirit and wanting to guaranteed get some pretty decent seats is what I will do is through the booking process. This only applies, the only time I've ever seen it apply is if you were booking round trip. If you pick your flight, so you pick your flight to your destination, you pick your flight home, you purchase your bags if you need any bags, and then you skip purchasing seats, says I don't need any seats, and then you get to, I think it's like the window right before checking out. Keep an eye on those pop-ups. Don't be so quick to click the X. Make sure to read. You want to be patient and read through this. And also you need to be on a desktop for this. It's not going to work on the app. I've never experienced this situation on the app, but on a desktop, laptop, computer, on an actual internet browser on a computer, I have seen this multiple times. And so I'm just sharing this as a tip, hack, whatever you want to file this under. But there can be a little pop-up that is save money on your seats by buying now. And it will take where, say, a seat was $19 each direction per person, and it will slash it down to like $5 each way per person. And I'm like, okay, I don't mind that. I'll pay $5 to go ahead and know I'm getting guaranteed row. Now, you don't get to pick the seats in that instance. They will assign you. So it'll be like, okay, for $5 per seat, you can get row 14, seats A, B, C, and D. And so if those are good seats to you and you're like, you know what, I think I would rather pay $40 and know I'm gonna get row 14 versus getting row 26 when I check in, if I don't buy seats. So that's just kind of something you can play around with that, because if you decide, you know what, I would rather buy seats, you can always kind of backtrack from the checkout, because until you put your credit card information in and you click complete checkout, you're not done. Nothing has been they're not taking any money from you, nothing's happened. So you can always backtrack to the seats section and add them if that pop-up doesn't happen, or you want to get something different, you would rather pay a little bit more to have a closer up seat, whatever you're looking at for your flights. But that's just a little hack that I've learned, is if you will skip purchasing them at the purchase window for seats, and then a few windows later, once you it's like, do you want priority boarding? Do you want this? You get past that window and then it'll pop up, oh, you can save money on seats. So just a little trick there that you can do. Now, as far as seats with Spirit, I have, again, never been separated from my children, which I love. And another reason why I kind of keep going back to them versus any other budget airline is, for one, I can get really great rates out of Nashville for them. And I can also be able to, I know I'm gonna have seats together, so I don't have to stress about that. I know we're gonna be good to go. And so just pricing it out, there will be times that it will save save me $300 or $400 compared to flying Southwest. And while I love Southwest, they're my go-to. I always check there first, but then I come over to Spirit and I'm like, okay, well, I could save $300, and $300 is $300. Like, that is something that I can put towards a bill. I can put that towards our trip, and we can have a little money to pay for this or that. It can afford you to be able to splurge in some other way. And I did put up a little question box over on the community tab here on my YouTube channel, asking a few questions about any budget airlines that you guys may have. So I wanted to do a little bit of a kind of Q&A here at the very end of the video. So the first question was top things you feel like Spirit first-time flyers should know beforehand, best tips and tricks. So as far as like knowing Spirit is just be prepared for those bags. They don't usually have you size your bag unless it just looks really large. So as soon as you go into the airport, once you enter, there's usually, if you go to the Spirit counter, away from like the gate or the actual counter there in front of the stanchions before you get in the queue, there's usually a little bag sizer. If you have any questions or you're worried about it at all and just kind of put your own mind at ease, I would go in the airport, go straight there to the Spirit counter and just size the bag. That way you know, and you can kind of put that, you can like breathe a sigh of relief if you're at all concerned about it. So as long as your bag fits within that sizer, you are golden. I will link my favorite personal item bag. I use this all the time on different Spirit flights, on budget flights. I've used it Frontier and it is just awesome. So I will link that down below. But again, just go straight to the bag sizer and just try it out. That is, to me, the most stressful part, is making sure your bag is within that size range, because I feel like that is the worst thing a lot of these budget airlines are known for, is charging for bags. And honestly, even with what we talked about earlier, it's where they kind of make their money. So they don't make it as much on the flight itself, because at $19, they're really not making a ton of money there if you're getting a flight that cheap, but they are making a lot of money on those bags. So just kind of, that's one thing to know. Just make sure to check that in advance. Try not to stuff your bag. You're better off to just go ahead and pay for a bag or whatever, if that's going to be the instance. So just kind of keep that in mind. When is the best time to book cheap flights? I just got a $58 round trip that leaves on Tuesday, which is amazing, but when I looked the day before, it was $88. So that can be from a lot of factors. The amount of like how full the flight is, how bad they want to fill it, that can all really play a role in that. I know for me, I was watching like as a monthly kind of calendar on a Spirit flight, and I decided to sleep on it, and the price went up. But I knew I was assuming that risk when I did that, because I could tell the higher price range was getting closer and closer to that date. So the closer you get to the flight, it was just like the price was creeping up. But one thing that I really like to use for booking is a app called Hopper. And this isn't sponsored. I have no like affiliate with them or anything. But if you download their app, you can actually kind of price out what flight prices are. And if it's far enough in advance, I think it's 4 months or 5 months out, you can have them watch a flight, and which I will do. I will set up a watch. I'll select both of our travel days, so our arrival day and our departure day, and it will watch flights, and I'll get notifications from my Hopper app saying, hey, the price has dropped to this much, but we think it's gonna go even lower. So you can kind of take your cues, and it will literally tell you once you watch the flight of like, okay, it's $328 round trip right now, but it is predicted to get down to $150 round trip. And so you can utilize an app like that to be able to watch it. Now, if you are wanting Southwest, it does not watch Southwest flights, but they do watch Spirit, they watch Frontier, JetBlue, United, different ones of those airlines, American Airlines. They watch a lot of the others. I don't know why they don't do Southwest. I'm not 100% on that, but that's a great way to kind of monitor your flight, and it can kind of give you a gauge on, oh, this is a good time to buy, or you can set up that notification and it'll keep checking for you and say your flight price really drops. You can do that. Question about Southwest is it worth paying for the early bird check-in? I see there are different upgrades to get better seats. So the difference to get a better seat is just literally closer to the plane, the front of the plane. So it just depends on how quickly you want to get off the plane, how impatient you are, basically, is what it comes down to. So if you're one of these people, you're just like, I am ready to get off. As soon as the wheels touch the ground, I want off of this plane, then you can spend the extra money. It just all comes down to how bad you want that, how bad you want that early seat. Now, as far as that, it does mean you get on the plane sooner. So it's not, with Southwest, it's not assigned seating. So the sooner you get on the plane, the longer you have to sit on the plane. So you may spend more time up front. It just all depends on, okay, do I care about my boarding group? Do I mind sitting closer to the back of the plane and being able to not sit on an airplane for a bunch of time in the front end? Or do I want, and then be able to, I'm gonna have to wait a little bit longer to get off the plane? Or do you wanna get on sooner and get off sooner? So you're going to spend more time on the front end. You may spend that full 30 to 40 minutes that they're loading passengers on the plane, but you get off in 10 minutes. So it just all kind of depends on what you're looking for, that sort of thing. Do you recommend for kids under 2 to have their own seats? Have you brought any of your car seats with your kids? So for us, when our girls were under 2, we just always went the lap child route. That's what we felt comfortable with. We've never traveled with our car seat. My girls do okay in car seats, but they don't do great in car seats. So my thing was always, I'm gonna carry this, and they're gonna end up hating it and just wanting out of it, and it's just gonna make this even more of a struggle. So that was the route that we went. As far as transportation, having car seats, it all depends on which transportation company you use. If you're flying to Disney World, to MCO, I always recommend MCO and then the number 2 Disney. I will have their website linked below. They're my go-to personally. I absolutely love those guys. They take such great care of us, and they do include car seats. So if you need a rear facing, forward facing, booster, whatever, those are included with the transportation. Now, if you take like a bus transportation, bus charter kind of thing, that does not require car seats, and I'm not sure you're even allowed to take the car seat onto the charter bus. I think you would have to stow it in the bottom with your luggage. So, and that's just something else to know about, is kind of gauging, okay, well, what transportation are we going to be taking and whether you would need the car seat or not. Is Frontier as strict as social media says with their bag size? So the biggest thing is some of them can be. It all depends on the gate agents as to whether they think you should size the bag or not. So again, that would always be my go-to, is as soon as you get there, just to kind of have that peace of mind, go and size it yourself in the bag sizer there at the check-in counter when you first get to the airport, and just make sure it fits. That way you can know, okay, I've got to redo this, I've got to do the repack of shame here in the airport, like whatever that looks like for you. Or if you're like, I need to go ditch some stuff in the car, whatever that looks like. As long as it fits in the bag sizer, you are good. I would always Google the bag size for whatever airline you're packing for, is know their size ranges for your checked bags, your carry-ons, your personal item, all that stuff. I would just do a quick Google search. I wouldn't leave it to just, oh, we'll find out at the airport, unless you just have the disposable budget to do that. But if you're wanting to fly budget friendly, I'm assuming you're trying to watch your spending here. So for me, I don't want to spend $300 on bags at the airport, so I'm going to do my due diligence beforehand to not have to do that. How has your experience been with Spirit? I've only used them once before and it was a nightmare. I'm scared to try again. We had a great experience, but there again, it all comes down to the employees. So it depends on if you get Grumpy Gil or if you get a kind person that they're just there, they're working, they're just trying to help people. And I don't mean that as in like they're cutting corners or anything, but some people, they take things way too far. I have not had any super bad experiences with them. I've had like a delay here or there, but I've never had like they just like canceled my flight or anything. So just I have to kind of roll with the punches. It's part of, I guess, the risk you are assuming when you're saving money. So it's like, okay, you're getting a $19 flight versus a $150 flight. So You're just like, well, okay, I'm assuming this. But the thing is you can have a nightmare experience with any airline. And that's what I always go back to, is we can have a nightmare experience with a lot of companies. We've not always had the best. Before kids, years ago, we flew American Airlines and just didn't have the best experience with them. And so just because it's some big name airline that isn't budget friendly doesn't mean you're gonna get this great experience. Last question is, if my Spirit flight gets canceled, will Disney help me adjust my reservation? I am flying Spirit nonstop to Orlando and I'm terrified of a last minute cancellation, as Spirit has developed a reputation. We had to fly Spirit because the other airlines had ridiculous flight times. Yes, they will definitely help you. When we were kind of in the whole limbo on our January trip with the whole snowmageddon that we got here in Tennessee, I didn't know if our flight would take off or not. So if that does happen, your flight gets canceled, Disney will definitely work with you. I have had nothing but great experiences. We've not had a canceled flight, but I had to call them on the risk that we could have gotten canceled on our January trip of this year, and they were fantastic. They were like, if that happens, we can modify your reservation or we'll work out a credit. They're very good to let me know, hey, we'll handle this, we'll help you navigate through it, you're gonna be just fine. You're not gonna just lose all of this money because of that. So always definitely call them as soon as you can and kind of talk through that. Now with Spirit, I have had them delay my flight or move it even before my time. I have a flight booked here in the next couple months with Spirit and they changed the time. Thankfully, if they modify your flight time though, I have been able to go in and request a different one. So say like for me in my situation, they had moved my 4 p.m. flight to like 6:30 p.m. But there was another flight leaving that morning at 10:30 and I'm like, well, you know, that one was more expensive, so I picked the cheaper flight, but now that they've moved it, I can switch to that one for free at no extra charge. So that I would definitely check into that. So if you do end up getting a flight change or anything, they email you any information like that, check into it. If it doesn't allow you to change without a fee, you can always do their chat feature and chat with them and let them know, hey, this happened. I need to move my flight, this time doesn't work for me anymore. And a lot of times they will work with you. I've had to do that on some where it was like, it was gonna be $100 to change my flight to a different time because the new time didn't work for us. And they were able to do it over chat, no problem. They switched the flight and we were good to go. So just kind of something to note, but I hope that has been helpful and kind of giving you some ideas on flying budget airlines. Again, moral of the story, with any airline you can have an issue. So it's just kind of comes with the territory of travel these days. You think, oh, everything's fine, I'm never gonna have an issue with this company, and then they just kind of like circle the toilet basically, and things can happen. Computers can glitch, systems can crash, and they're staffed with humans who make mistakes. So just wanted to share that, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to click the thumbs up button. Lets me know if you enjoyed it, if you'd like to see more content like this on the channel. But thank you so much for watching and I will see you on the next one. Bye. All right, end of the video club. You know the drill. You've been here long enough. You're a part of the club, like you're a seasoned pro. Leave me an airplane emoji in your comment down below, whether you're commenting or you're watching and you're like, hey, I made it this far, just leave me a little airplane and I will know